So let's talk about tire poke, specifically on the Toyota Tacoma. What is it? Why do you need it? And why you might want to stay away from it. First of all, what is tire poke? Well, it's exactly like it sounds. It's how far the tire sticks out or where it's positioned in the wheel well, which depends on what kind of wheel you have. Offset. You can have plus offset, minus offset. It all will affect where the edge of your tire ends up in relation to your fender. Now, what I have on the Toyota Tacoma, and I believe the 2024 comes from the factory with I think it's a plus 44, 45, something like that, which puts the tire right at the wheel well or just inside the wheel well. I went with a plus 1 on the new wheels. What that does is move my tire, because of the wheel position, further outside of the fender. So I have wheel poke that goes outside of the fender, that is. And it gives me about, it's like 1.77 to 2 inches, something like that. I love it. I think the look of it is awesome. So that's what it is. Now, why do you need it? Well, first of all, nobody needs it. I mean, the truck comes from the manufacturer, Toyota, or any truck really. It doesn't have to be a Tacoma or a Toyota product, but they come from the factory with usually plus offset on the wheels. That keeps the wheels within the fender well. You don't have to get it. It's all a matter of aesthetics. I think wheel poke, where it pokes outside of the wheel well, actually gives the truck a more aggressive stance. It gives it a wider stance. I mean, aesthetically, when you're looking at the truck, obviously, if the tires are out a little bit from the fenders, it just gives it a tougher platform, I think, than what you get with just tires that are flush down the side. Matter of fact, ever since really discovering and going with wheel poke that's outside of the fenders, trucks look funny to me now that don't have it. I'm always looking at it to see if they've done anything with the wheels on their truck, and I'll be honest, most people don't. It's really more of a niche-like thing or a modders type thing. People that want to do things with their trucks, right? So there is no real benefit that I know of to having wheel poke, other than to make the truck look meaner, more aggressive, tougher. Aesthetically, it's pleasing to your eye if you like it. Kind of like colors, right? I mean, we're all a little picky on colors. Would you buy a pink Toyota Tacoma? I just don't care for the color pink. I would never buy one. Things like that. Now, let's get to the nitty-gritty of it. Why not have any wheel poke where your tire goes outside of the fender? There are 3 main reasons that I can think of. And by the way, I want to say I was a little surprised on the channel at how many no's or negative comments there were about the setup on the truck. Maybe I had a bad camera angle. Maybe it's people who just don't like the 2024 Tacoma in general, so it gave them something to be against or post a negative comment about. I really don't know, because honestly, on the 3rd gen, on all of the Tacomas that I've had offset where there is wheel poke, and usually I get positive responses on it. So that's kind of why I say that. I think it's just the people that don't like the truck, period. Now, what are the negatives, I guess? First of all, rear side or rear quarter panel damage. Obviously, if you have the tire sticking out and you pick up stones and rocks and junk, or maybe run over a chunk of wood, who knows, it's going to fly straight back at the truck. There's nothing there to stop it, right? That's what mud flaps and things do. Although, let me say, the mud flaps that Toyota is putting on the stock truck are pathetic. They didn't cover the whole tire anyway. These little teeny tiny, funny looking, weird things. I don't know, it's just kind of strange to me. It didn't really show much of a purpose, I guess. But generally, the idea is to keep the tire in the fender well so that you're not throwing junk all over the side of your truck. That's a valid concern, I think. Probably depends on what part of the country you live on and what kind of, or live in rather, and what kind of roads and things you travel on. If you're generally traveling on new roads, you're probably not going to have that problem. For me, here in deep South Texas, it gets so hot that the asphalt always seems to lose its stones, right? So there's always stuff flying around. You can't see mostly any vehicles without having cracks in the windshields. It's just the way it is. So for me, yeah, it may not be such a great idea to have the offset that I have or the poke that I have, but it doesn't matter. I like it enough anyway. I got a semi pulling off onto the right. I hate when people pull off the road because that's where all the gravel is, and then they start throwing it up at you. Really drives me nuts if somebody's going slow and they're trying to be nice and get over so you can go past. All they're doing is throwing stuff all over your vehicle. I can't stand that. So anyway, that's I digress. That's the first reason, rear side or rear quarter panel damage. Number 2, concern for those behind you. And there's nothing wrong with that, you know, but you can't stop everything anyway. I've driven down plenty of gravel type roads and roads with stones and dust and all kinds of junk on them, and I've had mud flaps and it didn't make any difference. I've followed people that have normal tires, normal mud flaps, and I still hear the little tink 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 of gravel hitting the front of my truck. So I don't know. Yeah, it probably is common courtesy, I guess, or more courteous, but that's what I'm willing to live with, I guess. Number 3, the law. And this is something that you probably should check before you ever go with any kind of wheel poke that puts your tire outside of the fender. There are a lot of areas that have laws regarding this. You can only be either so far out or you can't be out at all. That means you're breaking the law. That means that you can get a ticket for it. Now, I don't believe it's a primary offense, but if you're somebody that goes crazy and has 3/4 of your tire sticking out, you might get pulled over for that if you live in an area where they care. But in most areas, and even where I'm at down here, I believe having the offset that I have is technically not legal, but I've never heard of anybody getting pulled over for that. I certainly have never been pulled over for it. It would be a real bummer if I did. I know there is a YouTuber that got pulled over once for that. I think it's in Pennsylvania, and they told him he needed to put fender flares on the side of his truck or get rid of the wheel and tire setup that he had, and what an expense that would be, right? So make sure if you're going to go with any kind of an outside the fender poke with your tires because of the wheel setup, that you check the laws where you're at, and more importantly, how, if you can, I guess, how strictly they're enforced, if they're enforced at all. Frankly, I think in most areas, they're probably not. It's kind of like window tint. Generally, you're not going to get pulled over for window tint. It's going to be a secondary thing, like if you were speeding. Then the cops are going to start piling on, right? Anyway, I just wanted to get on here, kind of explain wheel poke a little bit for maybe people who don't know what it is, and let you know there are some negatives, I guess, admittedly, to having it. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. I'm ready. Stay safe out there. Bye.